first thing that I did that I always recommend people do is create like a commitment goal, is what I call it. So you want to be really clear on how much content you're going to be sharing, how frequently you're going to share it, and then you want to commit to doing that for a certain amount of time. This is one of the most important things, or the most pivotal thing that I think I did at the beginning. I think if I didn't set myself a goal, and specifically a commitment goal, I probably wouldn't be here having this conversation with you because I would have quit. Especially on a platform like YouTube, the rewards are incredible, not just from the fact that you can earn money just from sharing content on YouTube, but also the audience you build on YouTube are highly engaged. They're super high quality. It's an amazing platform to be on as a creator, but it isn't the easiest platform to be on. It can be
Hmm.
difficult. You've got to put a lot of energy into the content that you create. It's one that, it gives you a lot of rewards, but you have to work really hard to get them.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of my YouTube hack. I'm Ebe,
I'm Greg.
and today we have a very special guest. We have Jade Beason on. Jade is a special content creator out of the UK who's started her journey during the pandemic and has now grown her channel to over 200,000 subscribers, where she educates people on how to grow on social media, tools they should be using to help them grow their creator businesses. And she's coming on here to give us very interesting insights of how she got started, how she's able to operationalize everything, such as her editing, and also something rare that we've never seen before, which is how she's created products early on in her career when she was a very small channel, and how effective that strategy was for her. So without further ado, here's our episode with Jade. Welcome, Jade. How are you?
Hi, I'm really, really good. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We're very honored to have you on as a guest, and excited to learn more about your journey, how you got started as a YouTuber. But first, before we get started and dive into all that, could you just tell the audience a little about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Jade Beason. I am a content creator who creates content which helps so my fellow creators, basically fill the gap between creating the content they love and earning an income from it. So my background is very much in marketing, and I merge what I learned from my degree in marketing and my 8 years experience in marketing to really help my fellow creators excel in their fields and actually earn a living and earn an income through being a content creator.
Very cool, very cool. What got you to want to do that specific type of
Mm.
content?
Yeah. Do you know what's funny is I think at the moment my niche is like very popular. It's like one of the most popular niches that are out there. But I always say when I first got started, which was in November 2020, which wasn't even that long ago, but it was not a popular niche then. There was hardly anyone. I remember telling my friends what I was going to do, and their response would be like, "Oh, is that a thing? Like, do people look for that kind of content online?" Because it really wasn't very popular at the time. But it was what I knew. So it was my background. It was what I was interested in. It's the value that I had to share. I always say everyone has value and experience that they have to share with other people. And that just happened to be what mine was because of my degree, because of my years working for different advertising agencies, working for different brands, even starting my own businesses as well. So that was one of the main driving forces why I spoke about this kind of subject, social media marketing, content creation. But the reason why I actually started my channel was because I knew this was the subject that I had value to add. And when I watched other YouTubers or creators online, I very rarely saw someone who looked like me being a Black woman and who sounded like me being from England. There really wasn't many people who were talking about the stuff that I talk about. And there's so many more now, which is amazing. But there wasn't at the time. And I've just always been aware of the importance of representation. So I felt like there was a gap there. I felt like I had the experience to really fill it. So I just went for it. And that was back in November 2020.
Got it. Got it. That's in 2020 to, only 4 years later, you've got a really successful channel. You mentioned how, now everybody, it's obvious that like your content niche is growing, lucrative. Lots of
Mhm.
people would love to be in the position you're in. Can you take us back to when you started the channel and, you spoke about how this was content that you knew, really well, but what was it like just in the early days where, now this content niche is
Mhm.
obvious, but back then it wasn't so. What was it like just getting off the ground?
Yeah. So when I first started, I think a big thing that was missing for me at the time was other people kind of talking about the business of content creation. I very much figured it out because of my experience. And I always tell people that was my fast track. So you can never really compare people's journeys. I use that to fast track my experience. Whereas now there are so many others who really share how they did what they did, whether it's in my niche or someone else's. So when people are getting started now, my biggest advice is always to utilize the resources that are made available to you, whether it's free content, whether it's paid for support. There are so many other people out there who are really putting back the curtain on how they did what they did. And it's really allowing others to fast track their experience too. For me at the time, so back in November 2020, obviously some big things were happening in the world back then. I'm sure we can all remember. And what that meant for me was that I had the brain capacity more than anything. I wouldn't even say the time. I don't think time is even the biggest thing that held me back. It was the brain space to actually devote myself to something else and give content creation a go, because I'd never edited videos before, I'd never had a YouTube channel before. So for me, my biggest challenges was kind of that side of things. And because I was working full time, but I wasn't able to go out or travel, I just had the weekends and that's what I focused on. So when I first started, it probably only took about 3 weeks before I realized that it was something that I really wanted to do. And then I very quickly changed my strategy and I was like, okay, what could I pull upon in terms of my previous experience to really make this a thing? So that was when I started doing things like building an email list, and I was focusing on my income streams. And I'm literally saying I was like week 4 and I was like using affiliate links and like doing all this stuff. I released my first like digital product like 2 months in, when I had a few hundred people in my audience. Like I was really going for it. And again, I was able to use my experience to really like fast track that for myself. But yeah, that was kind of what it looked like when I was first getting started back in November 2020.
That's amazing to hear. And a lot of times, creators, you don't hear about them prioritizing the business side first. It's a lot of the creative and then business comes and then they learn it as they go. But a lot could run into a trap just because they spend so much time on creative and that end, they don't understand the business and where money's made. So then, they're not able to sustain their businesses and keep going because there's no revenue being generated.
Yeah.
I like kind of what the approach you were taking with, developing courses and launching products and stuff, even when you had a small subset. Could you talk about like the traction and success you were able to gain from that? Or like what the learnings were you got out of that? Because a lot of times people now wait until they're big to launch products, but it's interesting here to know that, you started monetizing real when you were real young, and just wanted to know
Yeah.
like how that went, how that traction was, and if you could shed more
Yeah.
light on that.
Yeah, for sure. And to your previous point, you're totally right. I agree. A lot of creators don't think about the business side yet, or they wait too long, or they hire out for someone to do that side of their career. And I think the big thing that I noticed in the early days, like the big pain point for my audience, is just that if you didn't study marketing or business, then you don't know it. And there's this assumption because people are like, well, you're a creator and you have an audience, so monetize it. But we can't assume that people just know how to do that. Like I would never know how to do all this stuff if I hadn't studied it and had my experience in it, which is really what my content is dedicated to, helping people kind of overcome. But yeah, so I mean, as I mentioned, the first product that I ever launched was my ebook a few months in. As you can imagine, it wasn't a resounding success considering that I only had a few hundred people in my audience, but I did actually start to earn a few £100s every month just as a result of that one ebook. And I sometimes refer to it as like a reverse launch strategy because, as you said, most people build the audience first and then they launch. I launched first and then I built my audience. And what that meant was that I had at least one product. I mean, within a year, I had a few, but I had one product that I was natively talking about in my content. And, I'm mostly a YouTuber. That's where most of my content is. And on YouTube, your content tends to be evergreen and can be picked up for years and years into the future. So I was kind of planting the seed of my ebook and mentioning it so that as my audience grew, my sales for the ebook picked up. So within a year, it was making like £1,000 a month or something, which was very passive for me at the time. So that was a really great entry way for me. I then went on and tried different products and services, mostly as a result of what my audience were asking me for. And that's always a strategy that I recommend people can do if they can at the start. I've always been really fortunate to have an audience who are very vocal. And I think that's because I'm tackling a pain point which is quite challenging for people. So therefore, people are quite vocal about what they're struggling with and what they need. So because of that, I've been able to create services, products. I used to have courses. I don't really have them anymore. But in the past, it was purely to help my audience with something that they're telling me they can't do. So if they're telling me they need something from me, I will create the solution for that. And it meant that most of the time when I was creating products, I already kind of had a group of people who are already interested in them. And that just kind of evolved over time. I will say that in the last year or so, I've been really fortunate in that I've been able to take a step back and just look at my product suite and my business model and actually ask myself, okay, what do I want to do? Because for a while, I was very much just creating off the back of need. And then when you get your personal brand up to a certain point, you do have the luxury of being like, okay, well, what do I want to create now? It's always going to service my audience, but like I don't have to do everything anymore. So that's kind of been what I've been focusing on for the past year.
Got it. Got it. That makes sense. It's super interesting that you have this kind of flywheel of putting out content that you have, knowledge of, and then you get this, nice feedback cycle from people saying, I don't know, I have a pain point in a particular area that then you're able to then create content around or other products around as well. Could you just kind of double click on, for somebody getting off the ground, that's, a day one YouTuber, a couple weeks in, it sounds like you got the kind of momentum rolling early. Like what would you do if you were back that, if you could take us back to those starting days, just as far as balancing time across content creation, you're doing all the editing, and then the product suite in the emails.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a few things you want to do straight away. The first thing that I did that I always recommend people do is create like a commitment goal, is what I call it. So you want to be really clear on how much content you're going to be sharing, how frequently you're going to share it, and then you want to commit to doing that for a certain amount of time. This is one of the most important things, or the most pivotal thing that I think I did at the beginning. I think if I didn't set myself a goal, and specifically a commitment goal, I probably wouldn't be here having this conversation with you, because I would have quit. Especially on a platform like YouTube, the rewards are incredible, not just from the fact that you can earn money just from sharing content on YouTube, but also the audience you build on YouTube are highly engaged. They're super high quality. It's an amazing platform to be on as a creator, but it isn't the easiest platform to be on. It can be difficult. You've got to put a lot of energy into the content that you create. It's one that, it gives you a lot of rewards, but you have to work really hard to get them. So what I did is I told myself, okay, I'm going to upload one video every week, because back then there was no shorts, which is so funny to sound because it was only 4 years ago, but it seems like a different lifetime. So I would upload one long video a week at least for 12 months. That was my goal. And I was not allowed to quit, to reduce my posting schedule, to get discouraged. I wasn't allowed to do any of that until I reached that point. And even now, when I look back at it, I think, 12 months wasn't long enough. It probably should have been 2 years. But I was lucky and things took off for me within about 6 months. But on average, it can take 1 to 2 years before you start to see results. So if you don't set yourself a goal like that, and you are 5 months in, like I was, because things very much like blew up on the 6th month, around 5 months in, I wasn't seeing anything. If you're 5 months in and you're spending all this time creating videos and all of your weekend is just editing and researching and prepping, and you are uploading content and there is crickets, no one is watching your videos, it feels like nothing's working, it could be very tempting to quit at that point. And that's what that commitment goal is supposed to stop you from doing. So that was one of the first things that I did that I was really, really glad that I did. And in terms of the time management, again, I will just say, like, I had more time on my hands because there was no social activities. So I had all weekend to work on my YouTube content. And then when things started to pick up, I would work in the mornings before I worked my 9 to 5, because we were all working from home at the time. So there's definitely a bit of privilege at play there, because if I was doing that now, I don't think it would have been the same. It would have been really challenging. So it's definitely worth flagging that. But honestly, once you get to the point where you have the funds, or you see the results, or you see the future in your channel, investing in an editor is like one of the best things that I did for my long form video content. really just identifying what's the thing that's taking up the most amount of time and trying to find someone who can help you with that. I mean, the beautiful thing about doing this in this day and age is the fact that we have tools like Taja, we have AI-driven tools which can actually make a lot of our content creation process a lot easier. And I didn't really have that at the time. So look into those tools as well, because you'll be surprised at how much time you could save when you're really getting strategic about how you create your content.
No, 100%. Something I want to note there is with the editor and like outsourcing that. How did you operationalize or like build trust with your editor? Because a lot of times creators don't like to outsource their editing 'cause it's like I only know it best. I know my audience best. So how
Yeah.
did you operationalize that and like build trust with an editor to be able to, have handoff? And now does that handoff, is that like it's completely autonomous, or do you still have major oversight, major notes into kind of what that final product looks like?
Yeah. I think the first thing I'd say is you can teach anyone anything. I think there's like a mindset shift that you have to experience. You go from thinking, okay, someone else will never understand what I want, but if you dedicate your time and energy to teaching them what you want, they will pick it up. Do you know what I mean? I
Hmm.
also think a big mindset shift that I had to experience was like, there are other people who can do things better than you and far quicker than you. And that is definitely the case for me in my video editor. It might not be the case for everyone. I always say that like you outsource editing when editing isn't the thing that you enjoy. There are some creators where editing is their favorite part and they find it really therapeutic. And then for them, I'm like, okay, well, outsource something else. For me, it was more of a means to an end and it took up too much time. So for anyone who feels that way, it's about trusting yourself. You can trust yourself that you will be able to teach someone what you want. With my editor in particular, so I've had the same editor for like 3 years now, and that's a big part of it as well, is like investing in the person and just slowly trying to get them to the point where they're creating the stuff that you want rather than just jumping ship and hoping that someone else will get it, because that's not always the case. But when I first started working with him, he actually, I think he cold emailed me, which happens quite a lot, and I knew I was ready for an editor. So I trialed out 3 at one time and just looked at all of their edits. His was the best one purely based on the fact that he got my kind of comedic timing a bit better than other people. So it wasn't even that his edit was fancier or had more graphics. It was just more that I was getting signs that even though it wasn't exactly how I'd want it, I was getting signals that he would understand how I wanted it. And then from there, we've just worked together to continuously review what our content looks like and continuously improve it. And to answer your question, no, it's not fully autonomous. I don't know if it ever will be because it's such an
Hmm.
important part of my business. But we do have our process down pretty well. There's only usually one round of amends, but I still look through everything. I watch it on like 1.5 speed because I don't have time to listen to my voice drain on for like hours and hours every week, especially when I just
Hmm.
filmed it. So I speed it up, but I look at all of my videos and I provide feedback every single time. And yeah, I think that I'll always kind of hold on to that. But the whole process, I mean, it's like 5 or 6 times quicker than it was before when I was editing
Hmm.
my own stuff.
Got it. And with that being the process being quicker, like did that allow you to pump out more videos? How'd you change strategy by, having more efficiency in your workflow and, more time to allocate to other things?
Yeah. So for me, it was less about creating more content and it was more about building the business because those honestly like 6 to 8 hours that I'd be spending every week editing those videos, I now had pretty much an entire day to focus on the business side. So to focus on my email list that I was building, to focus on whatever product I was about to release, to focus on my overall marketing strategy, to focus on building my website. So for me, that's really where I directed my energy. For others, it
Hmm.
might be to create more content if you already feel like that's something that you're struggling in. Or for others, it might be to improve the quality of their content. So maybe now they have the time to actually go and do more vlogs or get more creative with the angles and the shots that they're filming and that kind of stuff. So I guess it depends for other people listening to this. If you're wondering what you would use that time on that you're about to get back if you hire an editor, I think it's about figuring out where the weak spots are in your business and where you should be diverting that free energy to. And for me, it was like the more business side of what I was doing.
Got it. And I'm curious, could you talk about how you decided it was the right time to be able to pull on a editor? I think a lot of creators, one, it's difficult to give up that you know, you could say, you call it freedom, the, you know, creative kind
Mm,
of their ownership of their own content in some ways. And the other part being, as they're growing their, you know, their business, even though that could be a pain point, they may not view the business as being, you know, ready for employee effectively number one.
yeah. So what I did was I completed like a time audit of every single thing I was working on and how much time it was taking me every single week. And I actually think I hired my editor's called Jamie, which is really confusing because my husband's also called Jamie. So it's a really confusing day-to-day basis for me. I'm pretty sure I hired Jamie when I was still working full time. And I think I was like working out my notice period. So I was still working. And I was doing a full-time audit of like everything. So everything from my 9 to 5 to like my social stuff, which was minimal at the time, to every single task that I was doing to run my business, like to how long it was taking me to respond to my emails and all that kind of stuff. And I broke down how much time it took to do each task every week. And then I would just highlight the bits that I didn't need to do. So I would look at it and be like, okay, which bits do I hate? The accounting. Fine, I need to hire an accountant. Which bits do I not love, but I know for a fact could be done better or quicker elsewhere? Video editing, for example. And I do that now as well. I have one full-time employee who helps me with the marketing stuff. And I do that with her. That's how we figure out what she's going to work on and what I'm going to work on. I feel like it's a real fail-safe way to ensure that you're hiring the right people to fill the right need, rather than just being like, I need help, and then hiring someone and not fully understanding what it is that you need them to do.
Got it. Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. A lot of people, even, you know, startups, whatever the case may be, that's a dichotomy everyone kind of struggles with, of when do you bring on someone, and when you start outsourcing. So that this
Mm.
only not only applies to creators, but just any type of business
Mm.
owner in general. Um, One thing I want to just go back to is your when you got on YouTube and how you got, you know, now you have almost 200,000 subscribers, right?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, in 4 years, like, could you talk about how you got discovered on YouTube? I know you said, you know, you were
Mm.
in a spot that didn't have much competition, and also you had
Mm.
a not much diversity either. But
Mm.
you know, did you just stick to YouTube? Did you diversify to other platforms and release short form content to drive people to your long form? Kind of what'd you do to build up your following and your viewership? Like, how'd you get discovered?
Yeah. So there was one video that really started it all. It was a video which was about Instagram's algorithm, which I think I released in January 2021. So I was like 2 months in, and it took a couple months for it to get picked up by YouTube's algorithm. The thing what changed for me in terms of my strategy was that I started to focus on trending topics and not just talking about things that I wanted to talk about. So before then, I would be like, okay, I know my rough niche, I know my audience. I'm gonna talk about. I remember I did a video which was about like names for your business, like how to pick a brand name, and it was the worst performing video to this day that I've ever done. And I remember I chose that topic because I just fancied talking about it, and I was like, okay, let me just check if it's gonna do well. So I went onto YouTube and I typed in like picking a name for your brand. And I think one video came up that had hundreds of thousands of views. And I was like, great, they managed to make it work. I'm sure I'll be able to do the same. And that was pretty much my strategy for the first like 2 to 3 months. And that is not a strategy at all, because you have no idea, you're not taking into account any of the factors which play into why someone else's video has done well. So that one person who created a similar video to mine, maybe theirs did better because the quality was higher. Maybe theirs was uploaded 5 years ago and the topic was trending then. Maybe they have millions of people in their audience, and therefore them achieving a few 100,000 views isn't even that abnormal for them. I wasn't taking into account any of those kind of criteria. So I stopped doing that, and I was like, okay, I'm going to look into topics which my audience are suggesting. And when I go to validate these topics, I'm going to look for content that is somewhat similar. So it's a similar pain point, doesn't have to be the same, but a similar pain point. So for me, it was like Instagram growth. And I'm going to see if there's any videos that pop up that have performed well within the last 6 to 12 months, that have performed well for creators who aren't huge. Like, are there any creators who are getting more views on these videos than they have in their audience? Because that's a huge sign that topic is being pushed out. So I started to do that for majority of my videos. And that was when I had the Instagram algorithm one. And as I said, that one really started to take off for me a couple months in. And because I had so many videos before, because I'd been uploading once, more often than not, twice a week for the past like 4 months before that video took off, I had a really good catalog of content, which was great. Because I had always been speaking to a similar group of people, it meant that if you saw my Instagram algorithm video and you were new to me, which most people were at the time, you could then see the rest of my videos and see the rest of my content and be like, oh, okay, I like this person, and subscribe to me. Or even better, the way YouTube's algorithm works, if you've just seen a video for me, and I've got other videos, the next time you go onto YouTube, you will see one of my videos there. Like, I will follow you. YouTube's algorithm will be like, you watched her video once and you watched it the whole way through, maybe you even liked it, and it will ensure that I will haunt you with my content until you watch another video for at least a few weeks. And that can only really happen when you've got a good catalog of content behind you. So even though in the beginning it felt like I was putting a lot of effort in for no reward and I wasn't getting any views, in the end, that was what helped me really see my first 10,000 subscribers within a matter of weeks, because I had that catalog of content. So it was a real compounding interest effect.
Got it. Yeah. So
Got
you
it. Yeah,
really only
that's
need one.
super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, go ahead, Eve.
Go ahead, Greg. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, my internet might be a little tough. So, you said a couple really interesting things here. The one that I'd love to double click on would be figuring out how to actually find those, trending topics that are likely to be evergreen as well and are a good hook into the rest of your content. Could you you mentioned using, Instagram, a few other ways of kind of researching. Could you just kind of shed more light on that process?
Yeah. I mean, back in the day, it was completely manual. So I would literally go through my comments, see what people were saying, see if there was anything that I could pick that was potentially a video topic. I would search it into YouTube, and then I would review and analyze all of the content that appeared. People don't have to do that now. You can use tools like on YouTube, there's the research tab that you can use. Which is in your analytics. It's a fairly new tool, but it uses AI and all of YouTube's first-party data to tell you what your audience are interested in and give you topic ideas based on that data. The one caveat I would say here is that it's only going to work if you have an audience of people who align with your target audience, which sounds obvious and sounds like everyone would have that, but a lot of the time when you're new, you don't have that. So if you're fresh and you've got 100 subscribers, half of those people are probably people who you know, so like your friends and family. And then the other half might have come from one video that maybe is about a topic that you don't talk about anymore. So YouTube is going to give you a bunch of data in the research tab based on those 100 people, but they're not the 100 people you're trying to target. So if that's the case, you've got to do what I did back in the day and be more manual and go onto YouTube, search for a video like you would if you were looking for content. I normally filter the results so that I'm only looking at content from the past 12 months. And then I'll look for any videos that have performed really, really well, that have been created by someone who has an audience similar size to me or a bit smaller. And then I'll pay close attention to what those videos are about. I don't create a new video based on that. So I won't be like, okay, well, that video is about X, so I'm going to create a video about X. You just use it as inspiration, because you'll find a few different videos that meet that criteria, that look like they might be trending. And you just take that on board and you use it as inspiration to come up with your next video topic.
Got it. Very interesting that you look at a trend in like a 6 to 12 month span, whereas many people would look at it like week to week or, bi-weekly, monthly type of thing. So that's very interesting. We also had a previous guest that he called it like an outlier test, but same methodology of they looked at smaller channels, which ones had high viewership on certain videos that had small channels, and he would use those as inspiration. So it's good to hear that we're hearing kind of the same thing of same strategies that have worked well for him, but also for you as well to grow.
And I will say, just on the 6 to 12 months, I wouldn't do that if I was creating short form content, because short form content is it's a different kind of trend. And it lasts a lot shorter. That's like weeks by weeks. But long form, when you're just trying to figure out, okay, you create content about fashion, but like what are people actually looking for in terms of fashion at the moment? That's when you want to do the 6 to 12 months, because it's long form and there's less data there. But yeah.
Got it. And then for shorts now, how do you create dedicated shorts? Or do you just create shorts out of your long form and drive people to your long form channel, long form
Yeah,
video, sorry.
so yeah, I do both. So I repurpose in a particular way. So if I'm going to do a long form video and I know that there can be a few shorts from it, I will record a different hook. So I won't just cut up the long form. I will record a separate hook when I'm recording my long form one, so that my editor can edit in the hook that's specifically for the short form video and then
Mm,
repurpose the rest of the content. Because a lot of the time when you're editing from your long form, there's no hook. And if there is, it's taking you too long to say it because it's for a long form video and not for a short. You need to get the hook out within like 3 minutes. So that's usually what I do. And then I have like shorts first content that is created specifically for shorts and for reels, not so much TikToks. That's a different strategy. But yeah, I do that as well. So it's a bit of a mix.
got it, got it. And then one thing, Jade, even from working with you in our partnership, you have a very strong audience that listens to you when you advocate for something, but a huge part
Mm,
of who you are is, you're not going to talk about something just because you're getting paid. You're going to talk about it because you actually tried it and you like it, and
mm,
then you engage in partnership, which is something that, we really like to we look for in creators when we partner with them is
mm,
how many of them ask for access to our platform and ask to test it and,
mm,
something that they experience and enjoy. And then, we engage in partnership versus those that just want to be paid. And even if they don't try your tool or know,
mm,
or even use it at all. So, um, you know, doing that helps you build a strong community. But what are all the mechanisms or, your main mechanisms you've took to build your community in such a way
mm,
where if you recommend something, there's strong conviction in them to go
mm.
out and also try it?
Yeah. So I think a big part of it comes down to me only really talking about tools and systems that I actually use, and also openly talking about tools, systems, products that I'm not being paid to talk about. I think that's like an underrated thing that people don't talk about much. It doesn't mean that you have to go out of your way to talk about something that you're not being paid to talk about. I'm not saying you need to do that. But if you're in a niche like mine, where it's an educational niche and people know that you are using a tool for something. So it's like if someone said to me, oh, what do you use to manage your emails? And then I was being all funny about it and I didn't want to mention that I use Outlook. You know that I use something to manage my emails. Of course you do. So me being open and honest and saying this is the tools that I use for different things, I think is what helps build trust with my specific audience, because then they know if I talk about a tool and I'm being paid to talk about it, great. It means that I've managed to find a partnership which is super aligned with my content. But it also means that I'm going to talk about other tools as well that I'm not being paid to talk about. And hopefully one day they do just pay me to talk about those as well. But people know that if I'm talking about something, it's because I actually use it. I think when you are exclusively talking about brands or companies, when there's a partnership involved and dodging around mentioning anyone else, even when it's valuable to your audience, I think that's usually when people kind of throw up some red flags.
Yeah, that makes sense. If it's,
Mm,
inauthentic to your content brand, and people are going to figure that out. They're going to, be able to tell, and they're
mm,
not. That's going to diminish your own reputation. Could you talk a bit
mm,
about how you, that's something I feel like a lot of people have to learn, is that, that kind of relationship between your brand,
mm,
companies that you partner with. Can you just talk us like, advice for again, somebody getting off the ground, that's getting, they're trying to figure out that they know that brand partnerships is something they want to pursue.
mm.
What was your experience like in being able to learn this and now do it, effectively?
Yeah. Again, I definitely fast track my journey here. Always need to caveat it. This is why I talk about the stuff that I talk about, because I had the experience in it. So I literally would hire influencers, creators, celebrities, ambassadors for years. And I would do the contract and I would manage the campaigns when I was at my 9 to 5. And then even with my little businesses on the side, I would hire influencers to promote products for me. So I was very fortunate to kind of have all that information. The advice that I would give to anyone getting started who doesn't have that information, similar to what I said before, seek it out. There are so many different resources available now where you can learn the ins and outs of the world of brand partnerships. It's important that you invest your time and energy into learning this stuff, because you risk being taken advantage of if you don't. You have to make sure that you understand how brand partnerships work, the value that you're offering a brand and the value that they offer you in return. And being able to do that will not only ensure that you get the right deals for both parties, but it will make it easier for you to work with brands because you will understand what they want from you. One of the main things that I talk about a lot is the concept of like a value exchange. So like there's always value being exchanged between two parties. And in the world of brand partnerships, a lot of the time, from a beginner's creator's perspective, we only think about the value that we can get from the brand. So to what you mentioned before about like you approaching some creators and creators not even asking to trial your product, that's an example of a creator only looking at the value they can get from you, which is usually money or something for free. What we as creators have to do is get in the habit of understanding the value that we're going to give to the brand. And it's only when we can consider both things when we can actually get good partnerships. So for me and for any beginner creator out there, it should be about, okay, what value am I going to get from this brand? You know, maybe I'll get something for free, maybe they'll pay me, amazing. But what can I give them in return? And if you don't feel like you're at that phase yet, so if you're really, really early on and you're like, I don't really have an audience who value my recommendations just yet, I'm not sure what that value offering is, you don't have to work with brands yet. You can just enjoy the season that you're in. This massively underrated tip is when you're in your early days, there is something so beautiful about just enjoying practicing creating content and just like enjoying getting to know what your audience respond well to. And there's no pressure there because no one's paying you to do it. There's no pressure because when you upload content, you know that it's not necessarily going to be seen by a million people. It's a beautiful time and all of us rush to get out of it, but just enjoy that season and know that when you get to the stage where your audience value your recommendation and you feel like you've got value to offer a brand, then that's the right time to work with them. And that's what's going to unlock longer term deals and real win-win relationships. And that's really like the sweet spot. That's how you end up with these long-term brand partners. And that's really what you're looking for as a creator, is the longevity.
Got it. Well, Jade, I think that's a great way to wrap things up. Appreciate you coming on. I mean, I learned a lot in this conversation, and I know we've talked previously, but got to learn a lot more than when we spoke. But I was a fan then. I'm a bigger fan now. So appreciate you coming on. You provide a lot of gems, and excited for the audience to be able to listen to this and take it back to build their own creator businesses.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Thanks for watching. If you liked the episode, please like and subscribe. Comment your favorite tip from the episode below, and please go follow Jade on her channel.